discussion tonight. The minister's going to tell you how to still send in information, but we have two offices here, my own office, one here in Cobourg, one in Brighton. So if there's anything I could help you with, please feel free. So I'll turn it over to my good friend Yasir. Welcome to Cobourg.
Thank you, Lou, and thank you very much for being here, and thank you all for coming to Delighted, right? And this is great to have so many people that we have run out of chairs and tables, so we're getting more chairs, and this is very encouraging. I'm not going to take a lot of time, but to say that this is a very important conversation that we've embarked on in the province of Ontario. We're doing these kind of consultations on our strategy for a safer Ontario all across the province in communities of all sizes, just not in big cities, but in small towns, north and south, urban and rural, Aboriginal First Nations communities, because we all have a huge stake in how we build safer communities. This is, I would say, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to rewrite our Police Services Act. As many of you may know, Police Services Act last time was written in 1990, 25 years ago. The world has changed a fair bit in the last 25 years. You just look at the use of technology and many challenges that our police services and communities deal with in terms of vulnerable individuals, like people with mental health challenges or addiction challenges. So we have an opportunity to modernize our Police Services Act so that it really responds to the challenges that we face today and beyond. And in that, we really wanted to make sure that we hear directly from Ontarians like yourself and get your ideas. So Mary Pat will go through the different topics that we will be soliciting your perspective. The point I just want to make, and that's the last point, is that this is not the beginning of the end of the conversation. This is very much the beginning of the conversation, because this is very important work we can only do with the help of all our community partners, and that includes our policing community as well. We have a fairly extensive discussion document online on our ministry's website. It is at ontario.ca/safer communities. I think there's charts up that have their website. You can see a much broader discussion document on some of the topics that we will be discussing in today's consultation. And there is a fairly substantive sort of feedback portion as well, where we ask you some very specific questions and give you as much time and latitude to write your thoughts and ideas as to how do we build even safer communities by modernizing how we provide policing and other social services and community services in our communities across the province. So we strongly encourage you to please take advantage of that document as well. You may know of people in your network, your family and friends who are not able to be here today because of distance, or they have other important family commitments at this hour. Encourage them to please go online and provide their feedback. We have received in excess of about 1,000 submissions already, which is quite encouraging, and we expect many more to come. So once again, thank you for being here. Lou and I are here till 9 o'clock, till the end, to hear your feedback, and we'll be sort of walking around in this room, and look forward to learning from you as we embark on this journey together in developing our strategy for a safer Ontario. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I think we will. The minister's already kind of gone through why we're here, so I think that's pretty clear. I just wanted to also say that there are actually 19 sessions across the province, and this is the 6th public session, and there's also full day stakeholder sessions. So all of that combined, in person, online, is going to be reported on and made available to you, including a session report this evening. So you can check and see, what your community said compared to other communities, and see what the common themes were that came out. As the minister was saying, it's why change is needed, and I know some of you I've spoken to already this evening, and you've been involved with previous conversations around community policing, around the whole police services, so a lot of this won't be new to you. You know some of it. The strategy for a safer Ontario, these are all of the information that I'm covering here, of course, is also at your tables. There's a handout. It's the same information actually the minister referred to, the public discussion paper that's online along with the questions. But really, if you look at it, the strategy for a safer Ontario is really about modernizing the Police Services Act within the context of communities across Ontario. So it's really trying to get at a collaborative approach to community safety and well-being, gathering all of the input from communities, understanding that communities are different across the province, so there's no cookie cutter, but there are some common principles, some common themes. So the 4 themes, and this is actually at your tables as well, that we'll be covering in this evening's dialogue are really these. The concept of community safety and well-being planning, what you think about it, how it would work in your communities. We'll talk about that. We'll talk also about the role of police officer in the 21st century. What does that look like? What does it need to be? What does it mean to you? And we'll then move on to talk about education and training. What is the education and training that is needed for modern policing? And lastly, we'll talk about, this is a democracy, we'll talk about accountability and transparency. What is modern civil or civilian police governance for Ontario? So those are our 4 themes. It's quite a packed agenda, but it's going to be quite interactive, and I'll explain how we're going to go through. You'll see we've got the topics there. So this is, if we need a little bit more time, we can adjust according to your interest, but basically we want to commit to having you out of here by 9 o'clock and having an opportunity to work in small groups as well to work all together. Why do I have this slide up here, ground rules for good dialogue? Well, good dialogue is really about courtesy and about being respectful of each other. These topics are topics that do elicit a lot of interest and a lot of passion, and that's great, but we're just encouraging everybody to make space for one another in terms of different opinions. You may have a very different opinion or similar. We want to hear it all, so it's not, this isn't an evening sort of to stand up at a mic for big, vigorous debate. It's really more about a community conversation. Not to say that obviously differences are fine, but we just want to make sure that we share the airtime, and most importantly, that we listen carefully to each other and not sort of assume we know what someone's going to say as soon as they talk. So just some reminders about good dialogue, work together and have fun.
Actually, it's to the contrary.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at, we in Ontario have done a pretty good job in terms of building safe communities. Ontario has one of the lowest crime rates anywhere in North America, and since 2005, our crime rate continues to decline. What we need to now focus on is how do we build even safer communities and neighborhoods. What is that 21st century vision around policing is in Ontario, and I think we as a province is at a great opportunity to demonstrate leadership not only in Canada but across North America in developing those ideas. We also know, as I mentioned earlier, that our Police Services Act is now 25 years old. A lot has changed over the last 25 years. Technology, for example, has a huge role in terms of helping us deliver services better, have safer communities. Not to mention, we find that our police services now deal more and more people who are vulnerable, such as people with mental health or addiction challenges. So, knowing all those things, the question we're asking is, what are the next thing we need to do in order to make sure that we're building safer communities? And if we are rewriting the Police Services Act, what that new piece of legislation would look like? And how can we move away from a reactive, enforcement-based policing to a more proactive, community-focused policing, where police is working in partnership with other members of the community and making sure that the right response is given at the right time by the right personnel.
Be very safe, B, safe, C, somewhat safe, D, I'm not sure, E, very unsafe, or F, prefer not to say. So we'll just take a moment and give people a chance to. Okay, 3 and 2 and 1.
Inspector, you want my chair?
Okay, so as you can see, we've got a high percentage, the vast majority saying very safe or safe, with 21% saying somewhat safe. So that's really just to kind of get a better baseline of how you're feeling about your communities. The second question is a little bit different. It's saying how satisfied are you with police services provided in your communities? And again, you'll see the choices are from completely satisfied all the way to G, completely dissatisfied, with the choices in between. So a 3, a 2, and a 1. Okay, so we have 36%, well, almost 50% there on completely satisfied to somewhat satisfied, well over the vast majority satisfied up. And then we do have 11% that's dissatisfied, and then 4% somewhat well, we've got, if you take 8, so that's almost 20 basically, so fifth of the row. So again, and this is great because what we want to do is have a dialogue tonight and find out why people feel the way they do, but more importantly, what we can do together as a community, as a province, to have the police have the kind of community safety and well-being, planning, and police services that we want. So,
well, I think what we need to do is make sure that police get to do what we've trained them to do, right? What the challenge we're seeing today, the police have become the default for everything. Police are doing their policing functions based on their training, but they're also acting as mental health workers and social workers and youth counselors. We know that we have other professionals who are properly trained to provide those services, and the challenge before us is that how can we strengthen those relationships, police working closely with mental health workers and youth workers and social workers to appropriately provide those services, so that this way not only we provide the right kind of response to the situation at hand, but also free up police resources to deal with solving crimes like things we see more often now around child exploitation on the internet, or those frauds, and more severe chronic issues that we need the police to pay attention to. So we are asking that very important question around training as well. We are asking the question around what kind of training police should get. We know that there's more emphasis now on training around de-escalation, as opposed to just use of force. So that is a very important aspect. Education as well, what kind of education requirements there be for our police officers in the context of the time and the age we live in. So those are very important questions we're asking during these consultations as well.
So what your perspectives, your ideas are around the ways in which the relationship between the police and members of your community, including vulnerable members of your community, can be improved. Understanding that there's lots of positive things happen, but how they can be improved. So I would just maybe pause and give you folks maybe about a few minutes to do that. And if someone wants to jot down on there's yellow sheets of paper on your table, just some of the key points of your conversation, then we'll come back and share in the whole group. Okay, so I'm going to just...
Very much so. We want to strengthen those relationships. So the whole notion of community safety and well-being plans is exactly this, that we want to empower local communities to develop their own community safety and well-being plans. And so that means police working with their municipal leaders, with healthcare providers, with their school boards, with Children's Aid Society, all different actors, based on evidence, develop their community safety and well-being plans. We live in a very big province. We live in a very diverse province, and circumstances and challenges differ from community to community. The best way to deal with them is empowering local communities to identify what the local issues are and developing plans around that. I think the role for the government and for the Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services is to outline outcomes, and which is to have safer communities, healthier communities, vibrant communities, and really empower local communities to find those local solutions by working along with the police and leveraging the expertise that exists in providing the right service, the right response through the right personnel. The response has been incredible. We've been going to communities all across the province. As I mentioned, we've been in Northern Ontario. We are in Eastern Ontario right now. We'll be in Ottawa soon. And of course, we've been in large centers like Toronto. We've received a very good response. Online, we've received over 1,000 submissions, and we expect that will double by the time these consultations are over. There has been a pent-up demand to have this conversation for some time. We were hearing from all sectors, including our policing partners, that it's time to modernize the Police Services Act. So I think we've got the right synergies and partnerships right now to get this work done.
It's really about trying to meet the evolving needs of our communities and our expectations about having sustainable and trustworthy.
I think we captured the 4 topics quite well. You know, people are quite interested in talking about how do we have more proactive, community-focused policing. You know, what should be the roles and functions of police officers be in 21st century is a very important topic. Training is another piece that comes often. And the last piece that we did not discuss is around how do we even further strengthen civilian governance and oversight of the police. You know, one of the key factors is to make sure that there is healthy respect and trust between police and the communities they serve, and you ensure that by having vibrant civilian governance. And if you have that, you have policing that is responsive to the community, and we need to make sure that we further strengthen that as opposed to weaken in our new model. Well, so Police Services Act treats everybody equally, and I think because all members of the communities are equal, regardless of where they live. So we have to be very mindful of that. I think there are some things that we need to look at, because there are, for example, certain OPP jurisdiction where you don't have civilian governance, whereas it's different here in Northumberland-Quinte, where we do have civilian governance. So there are some anomalies that exist in the current Police Services Act that we need to address and are obviously very much part of this conversation.
We want to have police, we want to have schools, social services, cultural and diversity communities.
Well, that's again very much part of the conversation. In order to strengthen civilian governance, in order to strengthen the tie between the local police service and the local community, we need to make sure that our police services boards are strong. They have the capacity and the appropriate training to be able to serve and represent the communities, and make sure that the police service is serving the community in a manner that is in the best interest of the community. You know, we've been doing a lot of work. This is a fairly large undertaking, but we're as a government very much committed to bringing about these changes. We're consulting through the spring. Summer is where we're going to be collating all this information and working towards drafting legislation, and our hope and expectation is that by the end of this year we'll be able to table a piece of legislation in the House. Absolutely. Yeah, the work has been going on, to be fair, for about last 3 years. We had created a future policing advisory committee that was made up of all stakeholders, from chiefs of police to police services boards, police associations, OPP, the municipalities, and they have, to their credit, have done incredible work over the last 3 years in terms of looking at some of these foundational issues. We felt as a government very confidently that we have to now take all that work and take it to the public. It is important that we hear directly from Ontarians what their views are. The Premier is very, very keen about that. That is the process we're doing right now, and we will then take all this information and start putting all the different pieces together.